Hello, Kinder. Here we are again, and here is another story for you from me and also from Miss Hannah, who's going to help upload this story. Again, it's by Julia Donaldson, wonderful writer, and it's called The Smartest Giant in Town. So let's get started. Here's the cover. I'll show you the pictures as I should. So he's very big. He's a giant. The Smartest Giant in Town. George was a giant, the scruffiest giant in town. He always wore the same pair of old brown sandals and the same old patched up gown. "I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town," he said sadly. So there he is. He's not dressed very well, is he? Can you see the patches? And he's so tall, he's higher than all the buildings there. And he's... Oops, there's a bit of shine on the picture there. But one day, George noticed a new shop. It was full of smart clothes, so he bought a smart shirt, a smart pair of trousers, a smart belt, a smart stripy tie, some smart socks with diamonds up the side, and a pair of smart shiny shoes. Now... I coughed, he didn't. "I'm the smartest giant in town," he said proudly. There is the shop. And here are all those beautiful things that he bought. And there are the diamonds on the socks. Can you see the red diamonds? George left his old clothes behind in the shop. He was about to go home when he heard a sound. On the pavement stood a giraffe who was sniffing sadly. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my neck," said the giraffe. It's so very long and so very cold. I wish I had a long, warm scarf." So, the clothes, the old clothes, and a conversation with a giraffe who's got a problem with a cold neck. All right. "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his stripy tie. "It didn't match my socks anyway," he said, as he wound it round and round the giraffe's neck. It made a wonderful scarf. "Thank you," said the giraffe. As George strode towards home, he sang to himself. "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." So, pretty happy giraffe, I would think. And there is George striding away in town. George came to a river. On a boat stood a goat who was bleating loudly. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sail," said the goat. "It blew away in a storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat." George talking to an unhappy goat, no sail, and explaining how the sail blew away in a storm. Can you see it blowing away? And then it went. That's not good. "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his new white shirt. It kept coming untucked anyway, he said, and he tied it to the mast of the goat's boat. It made a magnificent sail. "Thank you," said the goat. George strode on, singing to himself. "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." A shirt that became a sail. Wow. It's doing a good job, isn't it? And then here's George. Now he has no shirt, but he seems pretty happy walking along the path. George came to a tiny ruined house. Beside the house stood a white mouse with lots of baby mice. They were all squeaking. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's our house," squeaked the mother mouse. "It burned down and now we have nowhere to live. I wish we had a nice new house." So that was actually a scene of the old burned house, and this is when the house burned down. You can see the flames, can't you, in the middle? Poor mice. "Cheer up," said George, and he took off one of his shiny shoes. He was giving me blisters anyway. You know when your skin rubs, you get blisters? "It was giving me blisters anyway," he said, as the mouse and her babies scrambled inside. The shoe made a perfect home for them. "Thank you," they squeaked. George had to hop along the road now, for he didn't mind, but rather he didn't mind. As he hopped, he sang to himself. "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." So, mouse house, a shoe, and here a hopping giant, because he can't walk without a shoe. Well, he can walk, but not properly. George came to a campsite. Beside a tent stood a fox who was crying. You don't often see foxes crying, but he saw one. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sleeping bag," said the fox. "I dropped it in a puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag." So, a crying fox. Actually, there's some bunny rabbits there as well. And here you can see how his sleeping bag dropped in the water and became all wet. "Cheer up," said George, and he took off one of his socks with the diamonds up the side. "It was tickling my toes anyway," he said, as the fox snuggled into it. It made a very fine sleeping bag, like a bed. "Thank you," said the fox. And there he is. George hopped on, singing to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." So another view of the fox, which moves on to this page, and there is George skipping along, and now you can see his toes. George came to a big squelchy bog. That's ground with a lot of water in it. Beside the bog stood a dog who was howling. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's this bog," said the dog. "I need to get across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud. I wish there was a safe, dry path." So it's kind of muddy. A bog is muddy. Muddy. And here is the dog getting stuck. Can you see at the top he's getting quite stuck? "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his smart new belt. "It was squashing my tummy anyway," he said, as he laid it down over the bog. It made an excellent path. "Thank you," said the dog. The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind. He hopped on, singing to himself. Do you think you know some of the words now? "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. My belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. But," let's see the pictures. So here is the dog on the belt crossing the bog. Very clever idea, wasn't it? And then here is George skipping along. He's a happy person, isn't he? I can't believe what I'm seeing. My trousers are falling down. I'm the coldest giant in town. Suddenly, George felt sad and shivery and not at all smart. He stood on one foot and thought, I'll have to go back to the shop and buy some more clothes, he decided. He turned round and hopped all the way back to the shop. Here's the picture. And there he is. Oh my goodness, his trousers fell down. But when he got there, it was closed. Oh no, cried George. He sank down on the doorstep and a tear ran down his nose. He felt as sad as all the animals he had met on his way home. Then out of the corner of his eye, he saw a bag with something familiar. That's something he recognizes. Something familiar poking out of the top. George took a closer look. My old gown, he yelled, my dear old gown and sandals. George put them on. They felt wonderfully comfortable. I'm the coziest giant in town, he cried, and he danced back home along the road. So there he is, a little bit upset because the shop is shut. But now he's back in his old clothes and he's really happy because they're very comfy. And now we're getting close to the end of the story. It's quite good. Outside the front door stood all the animals he had helped. They were carrying an enormous present. Come on, George, they said, open it. Do you want him to open his present? I do. George untied the ribbon. Inside was a beautiful gold paper crown and a card. Look inside the card, George, said the animals. George put the crown on his head and opened the card. Inside it said, your tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. Your shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. Your shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of your socks is a bed for a fox. Your belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. So here is a very fine crown to go with the sandals and gown of the kindest giant in town. Isn't that nice? So here are the final pictures. There he is with his crown and all the happy animals thanking him. See the crown? And just to show you that they're good at writing, can I show you that? There's their writing, which is quite neat, isn't it? Because they haven't had a lot of practice writing, I don't think. But there it is. So that was the smartest giant in town who became the kindest giant in town. Bye.